Welcome to For the Love of Books, Bees Books Edition, a podcast by North Lanarkshire Libraries.
Hi, this is Pari.
And this is Jenny, and we're here to talk about Bee's books.
So the theme of this week from Bee was Genre Mashup, which sounds a bit weird if it's like a musical MTV kind of like, the heydays music genre thing. But it's basically two genres or two things that don't usually go together. They can. They can be a niche thing, but usually you think of them as separate things and they're smushed up together in hopefully a fun way is what I would think of as genre mashup.
A bit like a banana and toffee becomes banoffee pie.
That's perfect. I actually love banoffee. So genre mashup might be my favourite theme.
Yes,
So I'd love to know, what book have you chosen, Jenny?
So Pari, I have chosen a bit of a weird one. I have chosen Stephen King, Carrie.
Okay.
And what is it you've chosen?
My book is The True Queen by Zencho.
Oh, that's exciting. I've read that one. So
She is the true queen of our hearts. I just wanted to say that. So tell me, Carrie. I know a little bit about Carrie. Mostly a teenager is bullied in school and there's pig's blood involved. That's all I know of Carrie.
You've got it in one. You've got
great.
it in one.
Yeah.
And I think that's what most folk know the story for. And people sometimes go, oh, Stephen King, that's horror. But a lot of his stuff isn't horror as such. It's more, not even psychological. There's lots of different genres within his genre that he writes about. So this one, yes, there's a bit of horror in it, but it's not horror. I wasn't hiding behind the couch basically while I was reading it.
Yeah.
But the reason I chose this for Genre Mashup is because there's a story, but there's also quite a lot of like medical bits put in. So yes, the girl Carrie is bullied at school. Something big happens, and she suddenly discovers she's got telekinetic powers, and she can move things and do things.
Oh, I had no idea that was in Carrie. Okay.
Yes, yeah. So she's bullied right through school, and it's senior prom, and there's quite a lot of things happening in the background. Like her mother is very kind of religious, and hasn't taught Carrie anything about actual life, so she's got no tools to protect herself from any of the bullying that's going on. And it culminates in a big thing in the shower room, and then she discovers that she's got these powers, and then she goes to the prom, and yes, there's pig's blood. Some of the girls play a trick on her, pour pig's blood on her, and that starts her off on a rampage, and basically she destroys the whole town in a kind of climatic end. But in between that, there are excerpts from a commission that has been commissioned by the government about 10 years after this happened, and it's kind of like their findings on, it's called the White Commission, and their findings on what they think actually happened. So of course there's some people that don't believe it was anything to do with telekinetic powers. Some people didn't even think it was anything to do with Carrie, it was just a thing. So you've got your story, and then you've got like these kind of excerpts that have been put in. Then you've got one of the girls who started off bullying, but kind of realised that it was bad and tried to help her. She survived the whole, 400 odd people died. She survived, and she's kind of trying to tell Carrie's story throughout it as well. So there's bits in it when it's like, I'm just going to find a page, which of course I have not marked. That's completely different because I didn't do that. So there's bits about like her story, trying to tell folk that there was a reason that this happened, and then there's like police reports and news reports kind of smuggled in there as well, so that you can see what everybody else thought when they were watching it at home on the TV and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, there was like lots of things added into it that you're not expecting from just a straightforward story. And also I don't think that's really shown in any of the film versions of it either. It's more just kind of the story right the way through, whereas this was quite good. It kind of made you realise different people had different views on how everything happened.
Oh, I love those kinds of books where, like, I know not a lot of people are fans of the multiple perspectives, but I actually love it. So the Game of Thrones, the books there, that had, like, I think that was the one that I remember the most, where based on who's telling the story, you're finding different things out, but you're also sort of, everyone is an unreliable narrator, right? Because
Yes,
they're narrating it from their perspective. And that's true with any narrators, I think. Like, you're just, it's just a picture, it's a glimpse of the story.
Exactly.
But also, as you were describing that, it sort of made me think of Stranger Things if 11 hadn't found a group of friends.
Yes, exactly.
You know,
That's
she
exactly
could have
what it's
been,
like.
she could, because she was bullied, like especially in the more recent season,
Uh-huh.
she was bullied a lot, and if she didn't have, I think, that support system, she could have killed 400 people easily.
That's a great way to look at it. You know, basically Carrie is Stranger Things without the friends.
Yeah, that's so sad.
Friends are important.
I feel like I'm rooting for carrying a murderous rampage, which I don't know.
I think throughout the story you do kind of see everybody's point of view. We do know that bullying goes on in all walks of life, and you kind of see how some of the girls are kind of taken into it. You know, they're not really the people that are doing it right at the front, but they kind of get carried away. You know, that kind of mob mentality.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's such a shame because it was just one girl that did the prank right at the end. And if that hadn't happened, I think Carrie would have went on with her life and, you know, found herself. There's a couple of bits in it when she's at the prom and other people are kind of going, oh, you know, she's actually a human being, she's actually a person.
Yeah.
You know, and then of course that happens and it just flips it completely.
I wonder if there's Carrie fan fiction online which, you know, basically looks through this, or maybe sets it in like the upside down in Stranger Things or something, because I can see so much potential for like different kinds of things. That's really cool.
It's good as well because it's set in 1979. So there's no mobile phones, there's nobody standing recording everything.
Right.
It's very much, you know,
Yeah.
it kind of makes it slightly darker. That, you know, there's nothing like that happening, and you know, when the police and fire brigade come, you know, they're having to come from different parts of the country because basically everything's exploded, and it was quite good that way. I know that some of the modern films are kind of made it slightly more modern.
All right.
But yeah, the book itself.
Oh, that's really interesting.
And because it's set then, you kind of get the whole, which I'll not spoil, but the big bullying thing that happens to Carrie that sets her off.
Right.
Nowadays you would go, no, that wouldn't happen. That's just, you know, people know so much more now. But especially her coming from, you know, such a religious background where her mum just ignored everything about life.
I see.
You know, it was quite poignant.
But the kinds of stories that you hear even now, like in fact I think now there's more people who can tell their stories in a way that they couldn't before, you know, either online, like they can put their own stories forward, and there's this whole sort of flux of, you know, like documentaries and true crime things where you're seeing how you know, you think that this is just a regular neighborhood or regular whatever, but actually the stories underneath are quite dark.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
I quite like living up here though, where you know,
ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
Yes. So the book that I chose is a very different vibe from this. It's very like, it's lots of hijinks. I think, even though there is like murderous fairy queens and things. But so the True Queen by Zancho is the second in the series, but they're both standalone books, and I converted you, I know,
did indeed,
to her. So I'm glad that you're here to talk to me about it, because currently my brain is working at 5% capacity. So I'm completely blanking on everyone's names. But what I love about this book and the book before this as well, it's like set in a Jane Austen kind of universe, like an English universe, but with magic, like with fantasy elements in it. So the sort of norms and things are all, you know, what you recognize from, like, I guess a Victorian, Edwardian, whatever that era was. But it has, magic and like witches and wizards and sorcerers and dragons and dragons, And like, I love that Zancho, so she's a Malaysian British writer. She grew up in Malaysia and she lives in the UK now. And she's really both direct and subtle about how she brings in other ways of looking at the world. So because of the norms at the time replicate, like even the magical world sort of resembles the real world in that women are like considered inferior. People from outside England are considered inferior. People of another skin or a race, like a skin color or a race, are considered inferior. And she takes that head on, but in a really sort of light-hearted way.
Yeah.
So, you know, she's not pummeling you over the head with this message, but she does it in such a sort of sly and, you know, but also like she's not trying to hide
No,
it.
exactly.
And like, I love that. I love how much sort of personality all the characters have, and you're seeing it from these different perspectives. So in this book specifically, it's these two sisters who come from, I think, an island of Malaysia. Like it's one of those, the archipelagos there, and they've come to the no, I don't want to say the UK. I don't know if it was the UK at that time. Sorry, Scottish listeners. But they come to England to take the help of the sorceress supreme, I want to say. I don't know if that was the term, Jenny.
Yeah, that's what I would call it.
The sorceress in charge, basically, and like they need some help because they have missing memories and they're not quite sure what's going on with them. So they've come here for help. And it's really nice. So I first heard about this book on another podcast that I listened to, and it's called Breaking the Glass Slipper. And it looks at sort of fantasy, science fiction and horror, and they interview a lot of authors. So this episode with Zen Show was called Cultural Traditions with Magic. And it just looked at sort of, because, you know, we've grown up, or at least I've grown up a lot in India as well, with Western fantasy traditions. And like in books and like, you know, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, all that. But she sort of subverts that a little bit, especially in this book, where she's coming in from, you know, where it's not like Malaysia is the exotic part, it's England is exotic. So like her sort of, where she starts from is a different kind of place, which is much more recognizable to me coming from India. And it was just such a nice way of switching the perspective.
Absolutely.
And it's just such a fun book. All the characters are mad in the best possible way. Like, yeah, just in very different ways. And then there's this like sort of murderous fairy queen as well, because of course, England, you know. I loved the book. What did you think?
I also loved it. I loved that, as you say, the magic is not the magic that we kind of immediately recognise, but there was enough of the magic we recognise to make it work for somebody who doesn't know anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And as you say, I like the fact that there's stories going on behind the scenes as well. So the Sorceress Supreme, I'm sure she's not actually called that now, I've said it out loud, you know, is actually kind of struggling to get all the other magicians and people, although they call it something more something other than magicians.
Yeah, you're right. See, we're both together. We'll put it together. Yeah.
But she's trying to get all the men basically on the side that women can have magic.
Oh, but it's a scandal.
Exactly.
Because it's also, there's a class element as well.
Yes,
Because so she's obviously wealthy and privileged, but even that, because she's a woman, it's not protected. And I feel like so where these Malaysian witches come from, I think they're Malaysian and I've forgotten their names, but they take it for granted that women can do magic.
Yeah.
And like they come here and they're like, there's all these rules that are constraining women, especially the wealthier women, from doing these things. So it's almost, although like the servants and, you know, sort of the oppressed classes, I guess, of women in this society, they seem to be able to get away with things more than these rich women can. And she's trying to be like, no, this is, you know, it's not, we shouldn't have our magic stamped out of us just because of our gender.
But that's why I like, the sisters come into this and kind of basically don't understand and kind of like, well, we've got our own problems, so we're not really interested in your problems. But you know, the Sorceress Supreme is trying to sort out that at the same time as trying to help them, and you know, it's not immediately, oh, we'll help you straight away and we'll get this done. It's actually real life is happening. They have to kind of try and work things out a little bit themselves. That's what I quite liked about it. But I did quite like all the kind of bits of the kind of Jane Austen kind of thing, and the language sometimes is very
absolutely like very formal and sort of like, you know, you're saying something cutting but you're saying it in such purple prose that you're like, oh, am I supposed to be insulted?
Did she just insult me? I don't know.
Or did she compliment me? It sounded so beautiful. And also there's lots of plot twists happening because there's you know, like not everybody knows what's going on and you just get glimpses, so you can, because I remember when, you know, I was telling you theories, you'd sort of... So we were supposed to read this book together.
Yes.
You know, we planned that, both of us, when we are done reading our respective books, we'll like read and then we'll discuss, while we're at specific stages. And Jenny read it in
one go,
Yeah.
just from the beginning to the end
Yeah.
in one Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Just because it was so good. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think reading a book in one go like that can be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
Did
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. I
Yeah.
loved reading it in one go, but at the same time I felt as if I'd missed out on having the conversation with you, after a couple of chapters kind of a thing. So sometimes it works and sometimes...
But sometimes you have to just go with it, like,
Yeah.
you're enjoying it.
Exactly.
I really liked that I had these theories and I had to hide from Jenny, like both of us couldn't look at each other's
No.
faces because we're both terrible at
Yes.
hiding what we think. But I would tell her theories and Jenny would not be allowed to say anything
I had to
basically.
turn my back.
But you could sort of, like some of my theories were true and some were not
Yeah.
because there's like enough information there. So it's not really a mystery, but there is a mystery
there's
element
something,
in it. So even another genre to mash up.
Yes.
But I quite enjoy, I love these kinds of books and I would recommend reading the first book before.
Absolutely.
Because even though it's not necessary, this works very much as a standalone.
Yeah.
That book is also just this like sort of similar vibe without so much foreign which is coming in. It was mostly English, but still with the race and the gender and the class and all these things coming together, which I love, but it's hijinksy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think hijinks kind of is the way to describe it. It's just spot on. And I loved, not to spoil too much, but some of the characters aren't what they seem.
Oh yeah.
For the first book, right up till the end, you think this guy is just a guy.
Yeah.
And then he's not.
Nope, he is very much the opposite of just a guy.
And I had to turn back a couple of pages when I read that bit because I was like, have I missed something here? But no, she does that very well.
Yeah.
Also, I like the fact that the first book with the same characters in it was more about one character.
Yeah.
In this book, that character's still there, but it's more about another set of characters coming into that. And hopefully she will write another one.
I agree. I hope this is a series because it's set in the same world, but they're all focusing, like you said, on different people.
Yeah.
So I think there's so much to play with. I think just her imagination is
absolutely
the limit, basically.
Also,
So
I like the dragons. I would like to see a wee bit more of the dragons.
I love the grumpy dragon
Yes.
in this one. The aunt was like very snobby and just powerful and can't do with humans, can't understand why humans exist really.
No, exactly.
But she still loved coming to England from her dragon kingdom. So it's definitely, I'd recommend this book.
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think B would be happy with our choices?
I think so, yes. I think it was a wee bit of a difficult challenge this week.
Uh-huh.
And I think we've covered it quite well.
I agree.
Yes.
So for the next week's episode, B's challenge for us is high hopes.
Ooh.
Yeah, well, I don't know how high hopes she should have with us, but I think we'll be okay.
I think we will be.
Yeah. So if you have your own recommendations for Genre Mashup, we'd love to hear
Absolutely.
them. You can get in touch via social media or you can email us. We'll put our email in the sort of thing in the this podcast description box. I've lost 10% brain capacity, Jenny. But yes, we can't wait to be back and talk about our high hopes for the book.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.